Yo, SimWorld, what's up? What it do? You know what time it is. Turn your volumes up. It is the number one show in SimWorld. This is BLAZIN Takes. I am Rick Blaze, and of course, you know I'm joined by my day one, my day two, and day three guy, Siege. How we doing right now?
Oh man, we're doing great. It's finally Friday, but we don't stop just for Friday. We still got it coming for you. These team previews, they're not going to stop. So let's jump right into it. Our first team of the day, we're going to, keep going with the Intercontinental region. SimWorld Atlantis. Let's talk about them for a sec because they don't have anyone who kind of jumps out at you as the guy this year, at least for me anyways. But they do have a decent number of guys. They brought in Kenneth Klum. They brought in Nathaniel Zilberman. One of the recruits I really like and I think could be the guy for them eventually, Bjarne Johnson. I don't know if I'm saying it right.
But I'm gonna mess it up.
Yeah, I know we're both not gonna get that one right, but I like what he does playmaking wise. Here's what I do know about SimWorld Atlantis is that they've got a great coach in Tomas Kusa. He's gonna figure something out. He's got the chops to do it, and they have a lot to work with. They got some decent size. They got some decent playmakers. Keontae Smythe. Let's talk about him. He's returning. He was kind of behind Theophilus Hilton last year for them, but he's a great player, and if he can kind of take that step offensively, he could be something they could build around. But they got shooters. That's one thing they do have is shooters.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I do quickly the good, the bad, and ugly with this team. The good thing is, like you said, Coach Kusta. They have a really good coach. I like Nathaniel Zimmerman. I think he's going to have a breakout year this year. He's a really, 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 really good talent that's been kind of flying under the radar. I'm going to go as far as to say I think Nathaniel Zimmerman has the chance to finish the season as a top 25 player. That's how I feel about Nathaniel Zimmerman. Yeah, I take. Him, and then like I said, you talk about Smythe, talk about Kenneth Klum. They have a sneaky, decent team.
Right.
I predict just under 19 wins. I think they're going to do pretty decent. I think they're going to get probably anywhere between 14 to 16 wins. Now, that's the good thing about them. The bad thing, they're not really an athletic team.
No.
So they're not going to be able to run up and down on the court. So they're going to play a slow-paced basketball. And that part is going to kind of be to their disadvantage. They cannot get into a back and forth game with these teams on fast pace. Transition defense is going to be key for them. If they cannot get them back on transition defense, they're going to have a very tough time. And the bad thing, that's the bad. The ugly part is, I don't know if they're deep. I don't think they're deep enough as a team. I think they can put out a solid starting five. But I think once you get past the starting five, I think you have a lot of question marks. Parmesini is a question mark. Pearson's who they picked up. They have more question marks than they have answers past the starting five. So I think a lot of their games, I think the starting five can hang in a lot of games, but I think the bench is going to be key, and I think their bench is kind of ugly right now because we don't know what it's looking like. And they're probably going to be the cause of them losing a lot of games because the bench is probably going to give up some points and give up some leads. But overall, this is a decent team.
Well,
if you don't come ready to play, you can't lose to them.
I like what you're saying about them. And I see them the same way, but like you said, they're not a super athletic team, but they got shooters. We didn't even mention Mickey Hartman yet, but he can shoot it from anywhere. Him, Klum, Zilberman are all honestly lethal shooters. And I like what you said. They're not super athletic. They're going to play a very slow-paced game. And if they can control the pace of games and not let those teams that want to run and just play very disciplined ball, I think, like you said, they're going to have some decent success. And maybe I'm off base here, but they remind me of, you go to those AAU tournaments and you get that one team that comes in. It's a bunch of white kids, and you're kind of like, you don't really take them seriously. And then they start playing, and they are the most disciplined and fundamentally sound team you've ever played. And somehow they beat the brakes off you. They're
going to set screens, back screens, screens in the paint coming off the picks. I played against them. Yes, you have to be disciplined because they're going to be disciplined. That's a very good analogy. Yes, that's exactly what the team reminds me of.
They're gonna wear you down. They're gonna wear you down with the way they play. And again, Tomas Kusa is a great coach if he can maximize. Like we said, they don't really have the guy on this team, but they have a lot of guys who can do some things well. So if they can kind of be that team that just has 3, 4, 10+ points per game scorers. Maybe no one hits 15, but 3, 4 guys who do, and then a handful of guys in the 6 to 8 range. They're going to win some games.
Yeah.
So I think Atlantis is not on a lot of people's radars, but they're going to be in decent shape.
Yeah, they're far from a pushover. I agree.
And so moving on, let's talk about a team I'm actually really excited about this year. They got one of the players I'm most excited to see in action this year, SimWorld Europe, coached by Dmitry Kostov. They brought in, and he's kind of what people have been talking about, Ivanov Andriy, the 7'2" Russian.
If he dies, he dies. Yep.
And he is a monster defensively, offensively. I think he could be one of the better bigs in the league this year. Because not only is he big, but he does have a bag offensively. He's got great footwork. He's going to be dominant. And then I think the other guy that people talk about, another guy they just brought in, Zoe Dorn. We talk about those dogs a lot. Those guys that are just downright. They're going to give you full effort, everything. That's what Zoe Dorn reminds me of. 6'7", 230, but he's an unbelievable defender. He almost reminds me of a PJ Tucker. He doesn't quite have the shooting yet. But in terms of he will guard your best player and not look like he's supposed to be guarding your best player, that's Zoe Dorn to me. But then outside of them, they do still have, Carlos Buffini. He had a decent season last year. Franz Lustig. I like what they've got here, and I think it's going to be similar for them because they're going to base their game around solid defense and Ivanov Andriy. They're going to run their offense through him. So I think they're also going to be one of those slow, kind of grinded out teams. And if the shooters around Andriy can kind of up their game, they don't have a lot of shooting, but if the shooters can knock down when they double Andriy, which they undoubtedly will at some point in the games, this is going to be a team to watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, this Europe team. It's really interesting because there's some things I really, really love about this Europe team, and there's some big holes they have on their team as well. I really love, and I think they're going to be, it's a front court no one's talking about, but Ivanov, Andriy, and Zoe Dorn is going to make a really good front court.
Really good.
That's going to make a really solid front court. I think, obviously, you got to run the ball. You got to go offensively through the big fellas, the 7'2" big fella. Zoe Dorn reminds you of you said a PJ Tucker. He reminds me more of a Matt Harpering.
All right.
Doesn't shoot as well as Matt Harpering, but a tough SOB. They can hold anybody. They can take on any challenge, and he's not going to back down. That's what Zoe Dorn reminds me of. I love their front court. I don't love their back court.
Well, yeah.
They're not really athletic either. I think this is an interesting team. I think this is going to be a team for me that's probably not going to win a lot of games, but I'm going to find them fun to watch.
Yeah.
Like in NBA, how you have those teams that they up and coming, they're a bunch of young guys. They're probably going to win 25 games the whole season, but they're just a fun team to watch play every time they play out. I think that's what SimWorld Europe is going to be. I think they're going to be a fun team to watch. I don't think they're going to win a lot of games, but I think they're going to be a fun team to watch. And I wouldn't be surprised if two guys on this team, as an Andriy, I don't know how you say it, Andriy, whatever, the big fella, and Zoe Dorn, I wouldn't be surprised if both those guys finish in top 50 in SimWorld Pro, especially the 7'2" guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I agree because the thing is they don't have a lot of shooting. They do have a lot of guys who can go get their own shot, though, is the thing, which is an interesting mix when you want to run the offense through your big. But what I think they'll be dangerous because, as we know, this year everyone makes the race to one, right?
Correct.
If they can use the season to kind of figure out how best to, run the offense through Andriy, because there's a lot of ways to run an offense through your big fella, and they got to find out, can he facilitate out of the post, which we've seen him do a little bit, but that's not necessarily his best game. I think they could be dangerous come race to one time, even if they haven't won a lot of games, because depending on the matchups they get, there are not a lot of teams who have a defender that I feel comfortable putting on Ivanov Andriy. There are very few teams that I think can contain him, let alone stop him. So that's going to be an interesting thing to watch because I agree they might end up with a low seed, but they might pull some upsets out when we get to race time.
I agree. They can definitely play Cinderella when we get to the tournament. And I said earlier in the threads, Andrew is one of those few guys that I can feel that can be a 24% TTO guy.
Yeah.
He has that kind of usage. He has that kind of ability to affect the game both offensively and defensively. So anytime you go in against a team that has that type of player that have that kind of TTO possibilities and potential, you got your hands full because if he plays to his max capacity at any given night, he can propel his team on any given night. So they're gonna be interesting. They're gonna be fun to watch. I predict somewhere between 12 to 15 games as far as wins for them. But in the tournament, it's gonna be all about matchup. They get a good enough matchup. I can see them making out the first round for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey guys, that's our those are our teams for today. Let us know down
Yeah.
below. Cuss and discuss. What do you think of these teams? Do they scare you at all? Not really. What do you think? What do you got?
Put it in the chat, man. Let's talk about it. The weekend is off. The weekend's upon us. Hey, don't do anything I wouldn't do twice. We'll see y'all Monday.